Ghost of Tsushima is an Assassin's Creed game, is what an idiot would say. This game is much more than that. Even though I'm pretty much considered an Assassin's Creed YouTuber at this point, calling Ghost of Tsushima an Assassin's Creed clone or whatever they say kind of is a bit insulting to Sucker Punch Productions. You can sense that Ghost of Tsushima has been inspired by many different games. In fact, according to the director of Ghost of Tsushima, he said that Red Dead Redemption 2 was the main inspiration for the game alongside Breath of the Wild. Now, even though he didn't mention Assassin's Creed, it's obvious that the AC franchise does have an influence, whether you agree or not. The mix of an open world exploration, the smooth combat, and even stealth closely resembles what you'd find in Assassin's Creed. I mean, just take Sucker Punch's abandoned game that's called Prophecy. In this leaked demo, you can see that this Prophecy game draws a lot of similarities to a particular Ubisoft franchise. The stealth bears resemblance, and so does the combat. Yet when it comes to Ghost of Tsushima, it seems like a step forward for the same genre of game. When the game was released back in 2020, I remember seeing these videos calling Ghost of Tsushima the best Assassin's Creed game. It was quite a shock to see that Sucker Punch Productions made a game based in feudal Japan before Ubisoft did. So well done Ubisoft, you're many years late with codename Red, but I guess better late than never, right? So what I want to do in this video is go over the big misconception that Ghost of Tsushima is just Assassin's Creed, when in reality it's far from that. The setting of Ghost of Tsushima is one that definitely fulfills a long-standing desire of Assassin's Creed fans, and even myself included. The setting of this game takes place in feudal Japan during the Mongol invasion. Many of us have been constantly asking for a Japanese setting in Assassin's Creed for quite some time, and of course we eventually got what we wished for, albeit a bit too late. Anyway, if you want to check out my thoughts on codename Red, then just check out this video. Now, the choice of Ghost of Tsushima's location is not merely about aesthetics. In fact, I like to think it influences gameplay. The game authentically explores a very interesting chapter of Japanese history. Unlike Assassin's Creed, Ghost of Tsushima does not need to break away to a modern day setting. And although the game does not offer a discovery tour mode like Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla did, the showcase of Tsushima Island is truly breathtaking. The game's world design is exceptional, and you can really tell that it maintains accuracy in representing the island's geography. The way the game incorporates inventive gameplay features like the guiding wind to cleverly direct you when exploring is nothing short of helpful. You see, what really sets the world of Ghost of Tsushima apart from Assassin's Creed is not just the Japanese setting. Yeah, sure, just thinking of feudal Japan sounds cool in your head, but it's also the variety of each part of the map. You'd be traveling on your horse through flowery biomes, and you'd notice that each biome is diverse. It practically takes you from one environment to a completely different one, and it does this seamlessly. In fact, at times you wouldn't even notice that you've just changed biomes. In contrast to games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla, despite having ridiculously large maps, they suffered from a sense of repetitiveness. The landscapes in those games tended to not really blend together, which to me felt like the experience of exploring was definitely a lot more monotonous when compared to Ghost of Tsushima. What I love about this game is that it does not hinder you with insurmountable mountains or just distant unreachable landscapes, which is something we've seen in the more recent Assassin's Creed games, with Mirage being the latest example of this. Instead, Ghost of Tsushima offers a well-proportioned island where you have the freedom to explore anywhere, whether it's lighthouses, castles, or even the rundown shrines you see on the mountaintops. Everything, and I mean everything, is explorable. Another thing is the ability to scale things on Tsushima Island. While Assassin's Creed has more advantage with its ability to climb pretty much anything, Ghost of Tsushima introduces a more interactive and realistic climbing experience. Well, I say realistic, but then again, nothing about climbing mountains with just your bare hands is realistic. It's not just a matter of holding down a button like in Assassin's Creed. Instead, there's an added challenge. For example, you need to analyze jump distances and determine how far you can fall without taking fall damage. Even more, Ghost of Tsushima does something that I just love. It incorporates the old school Assassin's Creed touch, where you press circle to roll before landing on the ground. Yes, you read that correctly. Ghost of Tsushima to me is genuinely the game that has the best side quest in all of gaming, and you may say I'm exaggerating, and yeah, I probably am. But when I played through every single side quest in this game, it just made me realize that a dedicated studio is all it takes for a game to implement some pretty memorable features. The last time I can recall Assassin's Creed having incredible side quests that actually have a narrative and a meaning is probably the Homestead missions in Assassin's Creed 3, or maybe even Black Flag with the whole Templar armor side missions. The side stuff in the more recent Assassin's Creed is more filler rather than a well thought out implementation. You'd often just be walking and then an NPC just stops you to go into a cave to retrieve something, and that's quite literally it. That's the definition of a fetch quest, and the more recent Assassin's Creed games are in love with them. When it comes to Ghost of Tsushima, the side quests in this game are perfected down to a T. No fetch quest bullshit, no filler stuff, just a great narrative. The majority of them form a series centered around a specific NPC and their corresponding antagonist. As this series unfolds, there's ample time for the relationships between Jin Sakai, who is the protagonist, the NPC and the antagonist to develop into engaging narratives. Side quests feel more like chapters in a story rather than mundane tasks. For instance, when the main story involves reclaiming a fort for Japan, the roles shift completely and these NPCs from the side quest actively assist you in your overall mission to assassinate Khotan Khan, who is of course the main villain for the game. I can recall one side quest that will stick with me for a very long time, and that was Yuriko's Tale. Now if you've not played this specific side quest and don't want to be spoiled, then I'd advise you not to watch this part of the video. Now, I'll be honest, Ghost of Tsushima was the last video game where I had a tear in my eye, and it's because of this exact side quest I'm about to talk about. So during all the heroic acts of saving lives and fighting Mongol armies, we get a chance to delve into Jin's heritage by returning home. However, this moment proves to be profoundly disappointing. The insights that were gained about Jin's character and his childhood are very minimal, and the connection with the last living remnant of his past remains unfulfilled. Jin's interactions with Yuriko, who I believe in the side quest is grappling with mental illness, involve assisting her in visiting different outdoor locations that trigger hallucinations. However, it's the ending of her tale that really gets to me, and it's when she suddenly passes away, leaving Jin without a substantial connection to his roots. Now, I don't ever usually speak about this, but the genuine real reason that I teared up during this side quest is because of how much it hit home to me. The more I progressed to Yuriko's storyline and the way she mistakenly identified Jin as her father really resonated with my own memories of somebody that recently passed away. When Yuriko then passed away in the game, it took me back to that exact moment I remember when that person in my life died, and it felt oddly familiar because that person would often mistake people for different people. So yeah, you can probably imagine why this specific side quest resonated with me the most. But it's not just that side quest. The game has so many more, and each one, no matter which chapter you're in, has its own entertaining and meaningful story. The game is probably the pinnacle for me when it comes to side quest storytelling, and I can't see this game being beaten in that aspect anytime soon. I was thinking about this earlier when I was brainstorming ideas for this video, and that is to do with the more recent Assassin's Creed games. As enjoyable as the series can be, the user interface in those games can often be overwhelming and get in the way, especially during combat. Let's take Origins for example. Outside of combat, the visible indicators include the main quest objectives, objective markers, a compass with labels, a level indicator, and even at times, upgrade notifications. And then during combat, the user interface becomes way more complex with even more elements popping up such as Bayek's health and adrenaline. We also have information about enemies' levels and health. And then when Bayek takes control of Senu, we get numerous resource indicators that also come into play. You see, while Origins manages to present a substantial amount of information to the player, there is still room for improvement in streamlining and optimizing the user interface, which brings me to Ghost of Tsushima. This game is probably the best example alongside The Last of Us where UI innovation can be showcased. A lot of us have particularly emphasized the user experience aspect related to the on-screen heads-up display, or more notably its minimalistic design. Ghost of Tsushima takes a complete departure from the typical approach that's seen in games like Assassin's Creed. It does this by hiding most HUD elements by default. When in combat, that's actually when the information appears, but it's very brief. In fact, when you draw your sword, you cannot even tell that the HUD suddenly has new elements that just appeared on it. The moment that you're out of combat is the moment the HUD reverts back to nothing, and you can just focus on the world of Ghost of Tsushima. To me, this is exactly how it should be, simplistic and not a cluttered mess for your eyes. The game also takes a restrained approach to objective indicators. Instead of overwhelming you on where to go, all it takes is a visible gust of wind to guide you towards the objective, with an indicator appearing only when you're in close proximity. In terms of numerical information, the game pretty much opts for a more general description. For example, when describing armor effects, phrases like major increase to damage or massive increase to health are used instead of the typical RPG numerical values that I personally dislike. It kind of reminds me of the new Call of Duty titles, where instead of us being used to having 10 attachments on a class, we now have about 20 and the numbers are all over the place. The ranking system for Ghost of Tsushima also relies on actual verbal titles rather than a numerical scale from 1 to 20. This just avoids overwhelming you with too many numbers, and honestly is a nice satisfying break from the meticulous numbers often associated with other large open world games. In the early Assassin's Creed games, let's be honest, combat mostly involved a mindless cycle of pressing 1 or maybe 2 buttons. I mean, just play Assassin's Creed Black Flag and you'll see for yourself. That game's combat was the easiest combat system in any Assassin's Creed game. Once you killed an enemy, you practically had some sort of superpower where every next attack just one-shot the next enemy. It really made no sense. I distinctly remember waiting for enemies to attack just so I could easily parry and take them out without much effort. Now, whatever your thoughts may be on the RPG Assassin's Creed games, the combat in a game like Origins to me is massively improved upon when compared to a game like Black Flag or even Assassin's Creed 2. Button mashing is more reasonable, providing a satisfying and more enjoyable experience, even though it's not at all groundbreaking. When it comes to Ghost of Tsushima, I can admit the combat at the very beginning of the game gave me much older Assassin's Creed vibes with how simple it seemed. The tutorials cover basic mechanics like attacking, dodging and parrying, offering a good sense of control. Of course, as the tutorial becomes a lot more complex, that's when the combat truly opens up. We get introduced to an excellent stance mechanic to showcase the katana's versatility. These stances demand strategic thinking and awareness of enemy weaknesses. Each stance offers different light and heavy attacks tailored to break the guard of a specific enemy, and each type of enemy is susceptible to a specific stance, which creates a need to adapt and use various stances based on the situation that you'd be in. I really like how the game continually challenges you to memorize the correct stances against the different enemy types. It becomes a lot deeper when you realize that if you use the wrong stance against an enemy, that enemy is actually stronger against the current stance you're in. For example, let's say you're facing off against a Mongol with a spear using the wind stance, which is a stance that's used for spears. It's pretty efficient, right? However, if you use the stone stance, which is useful against swords, breaking that enemy's guard takes a much longer time to do. So you pretty much have to adapt your stance based on the type of enemy in the midst of a group, as enemies can belong to any of the 4 types. You see, while many combat-oriented games have stance mechanics, to me it's Ghost of Tsushima that stands out for being immediately useful. Even the standoff mechanic, which is a classic samurai element, it's honestly executed down to a T in this game. You have the option to take on enemies in honorable one-on-one duels. These standoffs demand precise timing to succeed. I would say imagine Assassin's Creed codename Red has a standoff mechanic, but then that optimistic thought dies the moment you realize who's developing the game. We all know Ubisoft are not going to innovate, which is the one major thing that holds them back from being great. While Ghost of Tsushima may lack some of the classic elements that define the earlier Assassin's Creed games such as social stealth or even advanced fluid freerunning, it manages to surpass Assassin's Creed in many different areas where the series has been struggling for quite a while now. Yeah, sure, Ghost of Tsushima stealth is not on the level of The Last of Us 2, Metal Gear or even Thief. Those games to me are peak stealth, and I would be an idiot if I was to say both Assassin's Creed and Ghost of Tsushima stealth is on par with those games. But I can say that Ghost of Tsushima stealth is superior to the repetitive cycle of the whistle/wait/kill that we see in the newer Assassin's Creed games. Ghost of Tsushima stealth is not exactly groundbreaking or innovative, but here's the thing, it does not need to be. Instead, the stealth is exceptionally refined, taking familiar stealth elements from other games and elevating them to different heights. In Assassin's Creed, one-shot assassinations were a thing of the past, while in Ghost of Tsushima it's a thing of the now, as it rightly should be. A blade in the throat in this game usually results in a swift death. More impressively, the assassination style in Ghost of Tsushima is a fusion of both Assassin's Creed and Sekiro. If an enemy is close enough, a button prompt appears for an assassination. There's plenty more stealth mechanics to enjoy in this game. Smoke bombs, distractions with bows, utilizing wasp hives, explosive barrels, or even fire lanterns for various purposes. You can even upgrade chain assassinations to take out 3 enemies at once. You can use different armor and charms to avoid detection, and a lot more that you uncover the more you play the game. While you cannot literally assassinate every enemy in the game, you can assassinate like 95% of them, and that's more than enough. So there you have it, Ghost of Tsushima is a great and refined upgrade from its apparent clone being Assassin's Creed, making it a recommendation for fans of both Assassin's Creed and stealth games in general. Honestly, if you're just thinking about going back to Assassin's Creed, I would recommend giving Ghost of Tsushima a try first. You might discover that it's perfected the style that's set by the games you remember enjoying. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and with that said, I'll see you in the next one.